I was waiting to let you in before I let everybody else in. Just I was like, you're not there.
Is there anyone else?
There are 39 people waiting to get in. So
Oh, good. Well, I hope that's all new folks that will take advantage of this.
I hope so. And I gave you ability to share your screen.
Okay, let me pull that up here. Let's see here.
And when you're ready, I'll let everybody in.
Okay, I think I'm ready.
Okay. The middle.
Recording in progress.
Hey, either of you.
I see a lot of unfamiliar names, so that's good. Dan, do you want to say anything or do you want me to start up?
I would just say welcome everybody to this Life to Eagle forum. We are trying to record this, so we're asking anyone that has youth on the call, please to leave your camera off, and also be muted until unless you have a question that pops up, and then we'll give you a call. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ken. Can everybody hear me okay?
Well, I don't know if I'm saying something.
I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, welcome everybody to the Life to Eagle presentation. My name is Albert Catelani. I'm the Quicksilver District Advancement Chair. And if I can have everybody put themselves on mute, we're getting some background noise here. So thank you. So I'm the Quicksilver District Advancement Chair, and in that role, I review all of the Eagle proposals for the district, as well as sit in on all the Eagle boards. So I've got a presentation tonight that will go through all the requirements and the procedures to go from Life to Eagle. This is basically an overview of the requirements and the procedures. This is not a comprehensive review of all the minute details and minutia. That would take far too long. So if you have any questions as we're going along, or any questions that you haven't had answered by the end of this, I've got some references in my email at the end of this presentation. Feel free to get a hold of me. The presentation is really tailored to Life Scouts or fast-moving Star Scouts and their parents, because they require some parent involvement in this to make sure everything gets done just right. It's also a good idea for any unit advancement chairs and any other interested parties that want to know more about this process. So let's see here. Okay, so one of the first questions that comes up is, does your son or your scout want to earn Eagle rank, or is that something you'd like them to earn? Because it really needs to be something that they own and they're responsible for, and they have to accomplish. And are you sure? And then there ought to be some motivation beyond it looks good on a resume or a college application. There's some, inherent value that lasts a lifetime to getting Eagle. They should understand what that is. As parents, like it or not, it's your child that has to show the motivation to get Eagle. And some kids don't want to get it, and sometimes parents force them, and that really doesn't help either party actually at the end of the discussion. So a lot of times at the life board review, I'll ask scouts, what's their plan? What is their target, their milestones to getting Eagle? A lot of them wait till the very end and they need to plan, otherwise they won't make it. So having a discussion about life, even before life, having a discussion about Eagle, even before life rank is not a bad idea. One of the things I told I have two sons that both Eagled out, and like any teenager, there were times where they didn't want to do anything and I'm pushing them to do it. And at the point, finally, I just said, look, I got this little red, white, and blue knot on my shirt already. They're not going to give me another one. So there's no point in me doing this. This is for you. So that was sort of where I left it. And they both got the message. As a parent, you can help, or an advancement chair, you can help by establishing a plan, getting some milestones, and just checking in with the scout to make sure that they're on target. So once the scout has got Eagle, what do they have to do to get, got life? What do they have to do to get to Eagle? So we'll talk about each one of these, but here are the seven requirements. They need to be active with a participant for 6 months as a life rank. You have to demonstrate scout spirit, earn a total of 21 merit badges, perform a position of responsibility, complete an Eagle Scout service project, have a Scoutmaster conference, and then a border review, Eagle border review. The numbers are the requirements, and the bullets are sort of the processes or procedures that require. Okay, one thing here on the number 3, earn a total of 21 merit badges. Just to be clear, that is since they joined BSA. Okay, they don't have to have a certain date they earn them by, as long as they're before they're 18, but they can start earning Eagle badges at any time. Okay, active participation, what is that? So the requirement is to be active in your troop or unit for 6 months. So the unit itself defines what is active, okay? So there's not one standard global criteria. It's whatever the troop, the unit decides as an active member. Like anything, even those of us that are professionals at work, we get reviewed. We want to know what our goal is. What are we supposed to be doing? And have your manager check in periodically to make sure that you're on track still. Same thing here. You should have the scout, encourage the scout to find out what the troop expects or deems active. And then even better if it's in writing, what's an active scout mean? And then make sure that the leadership is checking in with the scout to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm still considered active. Okay. Again, low participation or showing up for a troop meeting once every couple of months is probably a red flag. Demonstrating scout spirit. So easy to say, has he lived up to the scout oath and law? But, obviously a subjective evaluation. One of the things that we always ask in the Eagle board, and you should be asking in your lower boards as well, is can the scout verbally explain what duty to God, duty to self, and duty to country is? I always ask that in the Eagle board. And some scouts are pretty well versed in that answer, and some stumble along with it. So that's something that I guarantee you, if your son's got an Eagle board review coming up, I'm going to ask that question. And then as part of Scout Spirit, they need to get references for their Eagle application. And this is to get other people outside of the family. Mom and dad are fine, family, friends, school, employer if they're employed, religious leader. Those are all ways to demonstrate through the letters that the scout has Scout Spirit. More on that in a bit. 21 merit badges total. You can have more, minimum of 21. Of the 21, 14 are required. And I apologize if some of this is old information for some of you, but for some, maybe the first time they've seen it. So bear with me. So there's 14 required merit badges, and they're all listed here. And the ones with parenthetical comments are the sort of the bigger ones. They take more time, or they have a process you have to go through. So camping, the citizenship ones, community, nation, world, society, communications, cooking, emergency preparedness, or life saving. And these receive more than one merit badge. Either the first one they earn goes toward the Eagle rank. The second one can also be earned, but it just goes as an elective merit badge. It doesn't count towards the Eagle. So you can earn emergency preparedness or life saving. One of those count towards the Eagle. Environmental science or sustainability, again, 1 counts. Family life, that requires a 90-day plan. First aid, swimming, hiking, or cycling. Again, the first one, you're into those, goes towards your Eagle rank. The others are electives. Personal management, you've got to have a finance or budget thing for 90 days. And then personal fitness. Again, it's something that you have to, you take a baseline on your physical fitness, you train for 90 days, and you have a second test, and you demonstrate improvement in that. Okay. Let's see here. Beyond the 14, you need 7 optional, 7 non-Eagle required if you've not earned any of those alternate Eagle badges. So, and they can be the Scout's choice. Doesn't matter. They're up to them, but they can be earned. They be earned in any order. You don't have to earn all the elective ones first. You can earn them in any order at all. As long as you have 21, and 14 of those are required. Position of responsibility is the next requirement. So as a Life Scout, this means that once from the date of their Life Scout Board of Review, they must be in a position of responsibility for a minimum of 6 months. And a month is a month. Okay, so February 14th to March 14th is 1 month. Even though February might be a leap year, doesn't matter. A month is a month. These are the positions in BSA Scouts that qualify as a position of responsibility. Okay, so you might notice that assistant patrol leader, bugler, they are not positions of responsibility. Only these here are. Okay. More information. So this is sort of important because you don't want to have any disappointed scouts at the end of the 6 months or expectations. So each unit, again, just like Scout Spirit, has their own criteria for successful performance in a leadership position. The unit should provide what is defined as successful performance. So the scout should know going into the job what the job entails, what the expectation is, so that, and check in on him periodically to make sure that he still is on track to complete the requirements. If you don't have a written description, you should, because again, just like I said at work, we don't want to be held to something that we're not unaware that we're supposed to be held to, right? So same with the scout. Here's the description of the job. Here's the responsibilities. Here's the duties. Here's what you're supposed to do. And then provide feedback as leaders back to the scout on a regular basis to let him know how he's doing against that expectation. That way, at the end of the 6 months, it's pretty clear. You've talked to him several times. He knows he's on track. You know he's on track. There's no problems at the end. On the other hand, you might have a troop that doesn't have a description, no feedback given to the scout. And after 6 months, the scout thinks, well, I did what I was supposed to do, as far as I know I was supposed to do. So sign off my book. And they said, oh, wait, you didn't do it. You didn't do what we wanted you to do. I'm sorry. Where's what he's supposed to do? So just be probably more specific than you need to be so that the scout knows what the expectation is. Okay. One of the questions I ask in the Eagle board, I ask what the leadership position they held was. And then I ask a few questions about, well, what is that job? What do you do? What were your responsibilities? That sort of thing. If they can't describe what that was, if they say I was an instructor, and I said, well, what did you instruct? Or what does that job entail? If they can't tell me what that is, I wonder, did they really do that job? Number 5, this is the big one. So here's the bottom line for an Eagle project. The requirement is to plan, develop, and give leadership to others in a service to the community. Okay, say it again. It's to plan, develop, and provide leadership to others in service to the community. So high-level questions first. Where do I come up with an Eagle Scout service project? You can go to your church, you can go to your city, your Parks and Recreation Department, your beneficiary, your charter organization may be a good spot. Kiwanis, Lions, any kind of civic, nonprofit organization is generally okay. Okay. Can a scout have an idea in mind and go to potential beneficiaries, say, I'd like to do this for you? Yes, they can. Can they go ask a beneficiary, do you have any ideas for a Eagle Scout project? Yes, they can. All right. So basically, as long as it isn't a for-profit company, it cannot be for your own troop. And let's see here. That's about it. Okay, more on this later. So the service project is documented in what's called the Eagle Project Workbook. That's available at scouting.org. And it's broken up into 2 or 3 sections. The first section is the project proposal. The second section is the project plan. The third section is, I think it's executing. And the fourth is a report. Okay. All 4 comprise the entire Eagle Scout project. And we'll talk more about that workbook in a second here. All right. So another comment about the Eagle Scout Scribs project. We don't want a scout to try to boil the ocean. And we don't want a project that takes 20 minutes to perform by one person. Okay. So again, it should provide opportunities for the scout to give leadership. Leadership is defined as 2 or more people. So it needs to be, a few hours. But there's a broad range of what are acceptable Eagle Scout projects. One of these you should be aware of is that avoid routine labor or maintenance. So my local church needs their front parking lot weeded. Doesn't qualify. Okay. My chartered organization has a handicap ramp, and the ramp is kind of slippery when it's wet. So I'm going to put down some abrasive strips, adhesive strips, and paint the rail. That's just maintenance. That's not an Eagle project. Okay. Further, it can't benefit, as I mentioned, the BSA units or their properties. Can't be for a for-profit organization. And it can't be a fundraiser. Even if it's a fundraiser for a charitable organization, no, can't be a fundraiser. We talked about too big or too small. We talked about boiling the ocean. And then again, another items to use that service project workbook. And sometimes an achievable project, I've rejected projects that were achievable, but they were too expensive. One was, $8,000-$10,000. That's just over the top. That's way too much money for an Eagle project. So as determined as the scout was to do that, I convinced him that you're going to spend your whole time doing the fundraising and you're not going to have time to do your project. So there's a happy medium in here, right? So this is what the workbook looks like. Please be sure you use the most recent version. If you go to scouting.org, it will have the most recent version. And the most recent version is 2023A. That's the most recent version. If you've already started your workbook using the 2022 version, you can continue to finish it. But if you haven't started yet, use the latest version here. So what's in this workbook? So there's and I'm not going to go through all this fine print here, but there's a message to scouts and parents about what this workbook is, how to use it, expectations, and so forth. There's a page here also talks about, the same page talks about what scouts can expect. Okay, what's the expectation for the scouts? Mentioned before, here are the 4 steps in the process. You prepare the proposal, you get it reviewed by your local unit, and then me, get it signed off and approved. And then you prepare the plan. Once you have the plan in place, your local unit approves that, and then you execute your project. Okay. When the project's all completed, you then prepare the report and you get approvals. And this is a step that's important. When you're all done, you have to get the beneficiaries and your unit sign off that you completed the project as promised. Okay. That's an important thing to close the loop. The beneficiary acknowledges that you delivered on the promise. So the project proposal, first step here. When do I start filling this out? We can pretty much fill out any time, but there's some things that you may have to wait until you're closer to executing. One is you have to have a good proposal idea. You've got a potential beneficiary identified. You've discussed your project with your local unit, advancement chair, committee chair, or scoutmaster, whoever's leading supporting the scout. And then use the fillable PDF form. Quicksilver does all of our Eagle proposals electronically, so it needs to be in electronic form. Okay. First page, and this is actually, it looks like a lot of pages, but it's very simple because it'll talk you through every step. Every block has a description and what you're supposed to put in there. So this one shows, briefly describe in a couple of sentences what your project is going to be. Sometimes scouts put in pictures and captions, the before pictures. Talks about how you're going to give leadership. What materials do you need? What supplies are you going to require? What tools are you going to need? Anything else? Permits and permissions. You need a permit from the city or authorization from the city to do this, or from the beneficiaries. You have to approve it somehow. And then a preliminary cost estimate. This is sort of a high level, what you estimate it's going to be. And then the next step is you're going to, like any good project, you want to define what your steps are, your milestones, your phases. How are you going to get through this? Logistics, how are you going to get material and people to the work site? This is a Scouts BSA activity, just like a camp out or a camporee or a troop meeting. So we have to follow all the BSA rules, which includes 2 deep leadership, if anybody outside the immediate family is also there, and the first aid kit available, and a daily briefing on what we're going to do today, and if anybody gets hurt, let me know, that sort of thing. And then some final planning. Then there's a candidate's promise. Candidate's going to date and sign this saying, I promise to do this project as defined. And then unit approves it, unit committee approves it, the beneficiary approves it. And when that's all done, then the scout can call me and say, hey, I've got an idea for a proposal. It's all signed off. Can we sit down and talk about it? And then we review it, make sure it meets all the requirements. And then I sign it off. And from that point there, the scout is authorized to begin his planning and execute his project. Okay. All right. Couple of comments on fundraising. The most expensive Eagle project I ever saw was that $8,000 one. But most of them run, I'll say, somewhere between $200 and $500, something like that, maybe $1,000, somewhere in there. So where does that money come from? So the beneficiary can chip in, the scout can chip in, mom and dad can chip in, the troop could help out. All those are legitimate sources for funding. But here's the catch. If you're going to raise all the money that you need from the second block there, friends, family, relatives, the charter organization, your unit, or the beneficiary, then technically you are not fundraising, okay? However, let's say that you're going to go off and stand on the street corner with your hat in your hand, or you do a GoFundMe account and you're going to raise more than $500. That is, by definition, fundraising. And in that case, the fundraising form in the application must be filled out and signed by Ken Schott before fundraising begins. Okay, to start your project, but if you're going to be fundraising, you need to get Ken's signature on the form before you begin fundraising. The form itself must always be submitted with your application, whether you're fundraising or not. It's still in there. But if you're not fundraising, I just tell my scouts to write no fundraising required across the top, so that it's implicitly required, noted that you didn't do any fundraising. Okay, so that's the trick. If you're going to go off on the street corner or GoFundMe account for more than $500, fill out the form, Ken will sign it, and then you can start fundraising. If you're going to raise any amount of money from you, your relatives, your charter organization, those 4 or 5 bullets there, that's not considered fundraising, and you don't need to fill out the form. Okay. Another comment about that is that scouts should never be the one holding the money. Okay. Any donations or proceeds, technically the best option is.
What do you say? I'll put that. Oh, I said.
Hey, Brandon, can you turn off your mic, please? Okay. The best way is for the beneficiary to hold the money. The second best is for the unit, the Scouts unit, to hold the money. Okay. That way there's no question about who's got the money and where it's going. Okay. Let's see, let's skip here. So there's a page here for the project beneficiaries, tells them what their responsibilities are and what the expectations are. And one thing I always tell the scouts is that sometimes beneficiaries show up the day of the project and see that the scout's doing a great job and then would like to add a little bit more to the project. If the scout has the material and the time, they want to do that, I'm okay with that, but it's not what was agreed to by the beneficiary and the scout beforehand. So I always tell the scouts, if that happens, just politely say it wasn't part of our agreement, but I'll let the next Eagle Scout coming down the road know that this might be an Eagle project for him, and leave it at that. Okay. All right. If it's a significant change and the scout wants to do it, then you got to come back and revise your proposal and get it approved again, because it's basically a different project. Okay. Okay, the project plan. So after the proposal's been approved and all signed off, and the scout's now ready to begin it, I always emphasize to the scout to spend some time thinking about the project. Think about it in the way that if you were going to do it all by himself, how would he do it? And write it all down. The more time is spent planning it, the more efficient they are the day of the project, the more organized you are, because now you don't have 12-year-old scouts running around chasing butterflies. You can give them a task as soon as you show up, and things go much smoother. So I emphasize a lot in my project proposal reviews that you ought to spend some time thinking about how you're going to do it. Let's see here. More on the plan, similar stuff here. The bottom bullet here is sort of interesting. It's sort of a high level. Yeah, that's the perfect world. But effectively, the project plan should be defined enough that anybody else could pick it up and execute the plan. Okay, conducting the project. The first bullet here is important. This is not a project that the scout is supposed to do by himself. He's not supposed to be the guy that does all the work. The analogy I use is that the scout is the conductor of an orchestra. He may know how to do all the instruments, but he's not playing any of them. He's just leading the orchestra to make good music. So in the project, the Eagle Scout candidate is leading his volunteers to execute the project to his vision. Okay, so while he can help, if the guy has a problem or a group has a trouble and know how to do something, he can help them, but he's not supposed to be the principal person doing the work. He's leading the project. Okay. All right, so we talked about preparation. Third bullet is true. You have a complex project. I ask the scouts every day, if your project's going to take more than a day, at the end of the day, take some notes, because when you do your report, it's going to be very handy to have notes to refer to complete the report itself. Otherwise, you forget, right? We all forget. Important that the scout read the age guidelines for safe scouting. There are tools that scouts can use, and there are tools that scouts cannot use. And again, it's a scouting project. You have to follow the rules. So we talked about too deep leadership before. Adults can help out if there's something that, you know, a minor can't do, a scout can't do. That's okay to help with that, preferably at the scout's direction. And then one of the questions I always bring up in the project review is, what do you think is going to be the most difficult part about your project? Who's going to be more difficult, scouts or adults? And sometimes adults with very good intentions try to help. And by helping, I'm sure they're good intentions, but it's not what the scout planned. It's not his plan. So I tell the scout, if you're going to do a construction project or build a bench or working with concrete, before your plan has been defined, go talk to a person. You'll find out somebody in your troop that might have that experience, and talk to them beforehand and get some input to him. Think about doing it this way. Is that the right way to do it? And incorporate their comments into your plan. That way, in the day of the project, they've already been listened to, and hopefully their suggestions incorporated, and they're more likely to support and not try to derail the project by giving good suggestions, but not part of the plan. We talked about policies and procedures. Yep, talked about this already, I think, here. Okay, so the report. Okay, Little Johnny's finished his project, is all done. Now he has to write up the report. And the report basically says, here's what I was going to do, here's what I did do, and here's what happened. Okay. So you talk about, project description, what was actually done, what was challenging, what went wrong, what went right. What would you change if you were going to do this again? We always talk about that at the board of review. What one thing would you change? How do you think you did in leadership? What did you do well? What didn't go so good? So forth. And then you write down at the bottom there, that page is the number of hours spent. Number of hours in planning, number of hours doing the proposal, number of hours writing a report, number of hours executing the project of all the people involved in the project. There is no minimum service hours. Okay. Now, if a scout comes to me with a 2-hour Eagle project proposal, I'll probably ask him to be a little bit more involved, because 2 hours is probably not enough time. But there is really no minimum. If he could demonstrate, plan, develop, and provide leadership to a 2-hour project, okay. If you can convince me of that, I'll be okay. That's a requirement. Again, the pages are not numbered, they're lettered for some reason. But anyway, so any funding issues, you have any problems, any money left over, by the way, goes to the beneficiary. If I raise $1,000, I only spend 600. Sorry, boys, girls, can't keep the 400 bucks. It goes to the beneficiary. We love to see pictures. Before and after pictures are great. That's 1,000 words, right? And then here's the secondary signatures. This is when the project is all done. At the bottom here, the candidate says, I did what I said, what I promised to do. The beneficiary signs off, acknowledging you did that. And then your unit leader signs off as well. Okay. Merit badge is done. Leadership position done. Project done. Now I got statement of ambition and life purpose. So Scoutmaster Conference is next. Okay. So rank requirements must be done by the Scout's 18th birthday. Okay. You don't get credit for anything after 18. And we have a lot of Scouts that push that limit, but that's the rule. So at the Scoutmaster Conference, it's a good idea for the Scout to provide to the Scoutmaster a statement, a little essay on his ambitions and life purpose. This is also provided to the board of review. And we love to read these and see what the Scouts learned and where they're going to go, what their future plans are, and that sort of thing. And the list of positions held inside and out of scouting, kind of like a resume. That's for the Scoutmaster to review and discuss during the Scoutmaster Conference for Eagle. Okay, so now this is one of the bullets. This is a bullet. This is the second bullet in that page, one of the first pages here. This is the Eagle Scout rank application. Again, this is available on scouting.org. Please use the latest form, latest version. If you get it from scouting.org, it will be. And this is a PDF fillable form as well. And you fill out all this information. Scout, parents, the unit can assist. What's important here is to be accurate. So if you earned a merit badge on a certain date, make sure that it corresponds to the date on the blue card. Okay. So you fill out this as much as you are required. You might notice here that there's a place about the second half of the page there for references. This is where I mentioned earlier, letters of reference. This is where the Scout identifies people that he like the unit to request letters of reference for him. Okay. The Scout doesn't request it, the unit does. All the Scout does is give a name, and the unit will contact the person and ask them if they'd be willing to write a letter. The letter is returned to the unit, and then the board of review members read those letters. The Scout does not see those letters. They will never see them. We tell the people that are writing letters that these are done in confidence. The Scout won't see them, and they do not. Okay. So if someone doesn't submit a letter, the unit attempts several follow-ups with the person. If they don't submit one at all, that's not held against the Scout, because the Scout gave the name and the unit tried their best to get the letter. So it's not a ding on the Scout. It would be curious if a parent didn't write a letter, but anyway, that's a different story. So anyway, missing letters of reference are not held against the Scout. Oh, here we go. There we go. So they asked for several. They asked for a parent and a guardian, a religious, and that could be a parent if the family is not a member of an organized faith or anything. then we ask one of the parents to write a letter explaining their religious philosophy or upbringing or exposure, that sort of thing. Educational, teacher, these are very common. Teachers are very willing to send in letters. An employer, if the scout has had an employer before. And then 2 other references, could be a neighbor, could be a family friend, could be grandma, somebody else. This is the merit badge section. This is, again, it's an excerpt from the form. And this is where you enter all the required merit badges, the date they were earned, and the unit number they were earned in. Notice that number 14 is blank. This is an old version that should say citizenship and society. Okay. After you fill out all those 4, starting with number 15, you put down any Eagle required badges that were duplicate requirements. Remember those badges that you could have 2 or 3 to select from? If you've earned any of those, they start on line 15. And once you've entered all those, then you can put all your optional badges, your elective badges up to 21. You don't need to enter any more than 21. Okay. In chronological order, it says here too. So important that those dates be right. Okay. Application all filled out. You submitted electronically to Joanna Perez at scouting.org, and she will review it. Takes her a few days sometimes. Sometimes it's a day. Just depends how busy she is. And she will validate all the dates that were on the application. This is where it's important to be accurate with all the dates and so forth. She will confirm that all those dates are right. If they are, she will send me an email saying Mary Smith is ready for her Eagle board. And then I will send a unit email to the unit, Mary Smith's unit, and say, when you've got the letters of reference and the other paperwork you want to share, yeah, you're free to schedule the Eagle board review as the council has validated the application. Okay. Next requirement, I think it's the last one, Eagle Scout board review. So for those that are interested, the Guide to Advancement has a lot of information on what and how to conduct an Eagle border review. Basically, the unit, the home unit, Mary Smith's unit, is the one that organizes the board review. They identify who they'd like to have sitting in the board and organize it, set the venue and the time, invite me, and I'll show up when it's ready to go. There must be at least 3 people on the board and no more than 6. And all the members must be at least 21. Okay. I highly recommend that you have some community participation on the board. Don't make it all people in the troop. So I'm down in Morgan Hill. We've had the mayor, we've had firemen, policemen, Kiwanis members. We've had the local publisher, the paper down here. He sits in on quite a few of them. He's a very great guy. He loves to be on the board. It serves 2 functions. It exposes more community members to scouting and what kind of great kids we have going for Eagle. And it brings new fresh blood into the board review questions. So highly suggest community members. We also review the reference letters and the ambition statement. I get a lot of questions about, my scout just left for college. He's going to college in Nebraska and he won't be back until Thanksgiving or Christmas. Is that a problem to do his border review at that time? No. Technically, you can go up to 2 years before you need special permission to do a border review. I wouldn't suggest that. It's really going to lose a lot of the luster. But we've had a number of scouts that come back for Thanksgiving or Christmas and do their board at that time there if they've gone away to college. Under some circumstances, and it requires, I think, permission, we can do an Eagle board on a Zoom. Our local unit had one of those one time. So family circumstances, it wasn't possible to do a face-to-face. But the best thing is shortly after they've completed all their requirements and the application's been validated, let's get a date down and run the scout through the board review. Board review is to do 2 things. One is to discuss with the scout and try to ascertain, have they assimilated the ideals of scouting into their selves, into their daily life? Do they live by the scout oath and law, and how do they demonstrate that? The second one sounds kind of trite, but it's to determine validate that the scout completed all the requirements of the rank of Eagle. Okay. The board doesn't award the rank. The board makes a recommendation to either advance the scout to rank or not. And that recommendation has to be unanimous. So if there's one person holding out, then the board can't make a recommendation. Okay. I had a thought here. What happens if a board can't come to a conclusion? You can only have one board review. So typically what happens is that the board would go into recess. We suspend the board and we meet at a later date once whatever the issue was has been resolved and taken care of. And then we can come back and meet again as a board and hopefully make a recommendation that's unanimous. But we don't have a second board. There's no such thing. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, after the board review, the council reviews the paperwork. When they're done with it, it goes to the national headquarters for approval and review. And how do you know when the national council has accepted and approved the Eagle rank? The Eagle badge, left corner of our presentation here, that badge, the patch will appear by the scout's name in Scout Book, on the roster for the troop in Scout Book. They used to send you a letter. They don't do that anymore. So your local troop advancement chair or scoutmaster needs to look in Scout Book. Usually takes 2 to 4 weeks, somewhere in there, once you submit all the paperwork. Once it appears, that means you're an Eagle Scout as of the date of your border review. Okay. So no matter how long it takes the national to do this, you're an Eagle as of your border review date. Okay. Then the unit and parents can do their work to set up an Eagle Court of Honor. Again, it's typically done by the parents with some help from the assistance from the unit. But I recommend waiting until you see that patch in Scout Book. That way you don't have, food ordered and family and friends coming from out of town and the national hasn't validated the rank yet. So you want to wait till you see that patch by the name. And then once that's all done, then the unit leader can pick up the Eagle packet from the council. And that's a little box that has the Eagle patch on the left upper corner, the Eagle medal on the upper right corner. It has a mom and dad pin. It has a mentor pin. Comes in a little black velour case. They also get a certificate. A couple letters are in there, congratulatory letters. Anyway, those can all be picked up by the unit's leader at the council office. Okay, we're almost there. So Eagle Court of Honor. So the Eagle Court of Honor has a lot of traditions, and many troops have their own traditions, which is fine. It's usually organized by the parents of the scout with some help from the unit, because there are a couple of items that are required for an Eagle Court of Honor. And we don't want to have an Eagle Court of Honor like a normal Court of Honor. So we reserve the Eagle Award just for Eagle. So, you guys have Court of Honors 3 or 4 times a year, whatever it is. You award merit badges and ranks. That's all great, but you don't award an Eagle at that. The Eagle is justifies a separate ceremony just for the those scouts that get Eagle. So a lot of variations on Eagle. You can do a research on the internet. You find countless versions of what an Eagle Scout ceremony and sequence is. But basically, there's 2 important things in there that are always part of it, and that is the Eagle Charge and the Eagle Promise. And the Eagle Charge is something that is read to the scout, which tells him what his responsibilities are. And then there's an Eagle Promise where the scout recites what his responsibilities shall be. Okay. And be careful if you're going to get some information that's from a source other than scouting.org. Many times that stuff is outdated or an old revision, and you want to make sure that you're using the official latest and greatest version. You don't want to spend a lot of time and effort doing something and find out you got the wrong version out there. That would be a lot of wasted effort. And here's some resources. So again, top of the list, it should be 3 W's, not 4 W's there. Scouting.org. is a great source for a lot of information on the program, scouts in general, advancement awards, all sorts of things are there. There's a guide to advancement. It's available in a PDF. If you just enter that publication number at scouting.org, it'll bring it up. It's a PDF version you can download. I think 2021 is the last revision of it. Again, the Scout Service Project Workbook, do a search on that number and that'll come up. And then Aaron on Scouting has a lot of good information on a number of scouting topics, including Eagle boards and the Eagle rank. And there's my email address there as well. I see some, let's see in the chat. What's in the chat here? Oh, yeah, I do believe, Ken, you want to confirm we are recording, and will the slides be available on the Google Drive?
We are recording this, and I hopefully will put a link on the council website. We could probably put the slides on the council website as well. It'll be found underneath the Eagle section.
With
Yeah.
that, I ran through it pretty quick. I know a lot of slides. Any questions?
Albert, I was just gonna say what Ken was just saying. The council website on the resources tab has a very helpful page of all Eagle Scout resources.
Right. Sorry, I'm sure we'll probably add that.
Yeah, almost everything that you listed there, we actually have hot linked on that page as well.
Made a note. Okay. Any questions? Anything that I got wrong? It's possible. Or anything I did not answer that you're interested in knowing.
I'll give you just one piece of feedback that to remember that it's both boys and girls now.
Right. I try to say scouts.
Yep. It's hard.
Yeah.
Hard to remember.
It's ingrained, right? It's been a
Yep.
long time.
I had one question. You had on the slide about the rank requirements and everything, and the Scoutmaster Conference about unless the scout has an extension. Can you talk a little bit about that process of getting
Sure.
an extension and
Mhm. So, if a scout finds himself in a position where, due to circumstances beyond his control, and he finds that he's not going to have enough time to complete his Eagle, there is a process where they can apply and request for an extension. And I don't have it in front of it. There's specific criteria that the request must meet in order to be considered. And I'll just talk, extemporaneously here for a second. So if it was, say, a scout was injured and he was in the hospital for 2 months, and he's better now, he's home, but he doesn't have time enough now to finish his Eagle project, for example, or any Eagle requirement, then that's a reasonable consideration that he beyond his control, and he couldn't have helped it, and that really is hampering his ability to make Eagle. That's a reasonable thing. A serious illness in the family where the family's routine got really thrown out the window for several weeks or maybe 2 months or whatever, and the scout wasn't able to do Eagle stuff. Those sort of things, but they need to be unexpected, serious. And there is actually, if you go look on the website, there'll be the criteria that it has to meet. It took me 4 years to get to Star, and then another 3 to get to Live. So I'm just not going to make it. I need more time. That's not a legitimate reason. Okay. So I'm running out of time because I didn't do things in a timely fashion. It's not a reason to extend. And generally, extension is granted for as long as the scout's downtime existed. So in the earlier example, I've been in the hospital for 6 weeks. 6 weeks extension is a reasonable thing. Okay, those are general sort of guidelines. We don't get a lot of extensions. I think if you look, I think the guide to advancement says an extension should be rarely requested. I don't know what rarely means, but we have a few in the district on an annual basis. And I would say that most of the time they're granted because they understand the criteria and the justification meets the criteria, but not always. There's sometimes where the scout just wasn't motivated enough and finds out he's running out of time and wants to get Eagle. Oh, I'm sorry. Life is sometimes harsh, and you don't get an extension because you were taking it easy.
And one thing that I'll add to that, I've gone through that process with one of my scouts before. And if you have a scout that's special needs, has any sort of a disability,
Right.
If they have individualized education plan, IEP, or anything like that from school, those are
that's a different circumstance there.
Different circumstance. Yes.
And if you have an IEP or a medical letter indicating the extent of the disability, then those are generally extended.
Yeah. I will say though, don't wait till the last minute for the
in either case.
In either case, yeah. It took us close to 2 years for a scout that had legitimate reasons. And the other thing is, when the parent comes to you and says, oh, well, he's got a couple of weeks, he or she has got a couple of weeks before they turn 18. Here's a letter from the doctor saying that they have ADHD or something like that. That's way too late.
Yep.
So, and I'm sure I'm going to open a can of worms here, but having for the unit to know if a scout, especially if a scout is on behavioral meds related to whatever their situation is, it's good for the unit to be able to know that, because finding it out at the, right before they turn 18, can lead to issues within the unit.
That's a touchy gray area, because my experience, most of the time, if you're going on campouts, the family will come and tell you, hey, my son, whatever, takes medication and he's got to have it every 4 hours. So you kind of know. But otherwise, where there are HIPAA rules involved here, it's a little gray. But hopefully you would think that the parent would, in the best interest of the child, let scout leadership know that, hey, I've got a special kid here and you need to just be aware of it.
Exactly.
Somebody asked another question here. Shirley Davis, can you talk a bit about the role of Eagle coach? Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. Some large troops, many scouts, they have a leader that's, or more than one sometimes, that is defined to be the Eagle coach. So he helps all the Eagle people through the process, helps them, with the documentation and paperwork, and kind of guides them along. Most troops, though, don't have that, in my experience. So that falls to, a patrol advisor or a scoutmaster or assistant scoutmaster. And any scouter can fulfill the role of Eagle coach. It's not required. And I see many applications that don't have anything in that slot on the page 2 of the proposal. And that's okay. Let's see, I don't see any other questions here.
All right, Albert, I got one more question. Sorry.
Sure.
For the letters of recommendation, what do you do in a situation where the scout goes ahead and not only asks for the letters, but receives the letters from those that wrote it and has already read them?
So leadership should tell the scout how the process works. They should tell the scout, give me the names, don't talk to the people, give me the names, and then the unit takes care of everything else after that. If the scout has on their own contacted the beneficiary, I'm sorry, the letters of reference people, and the letters are sent to the scout. Scout opens them and reads them. Ken, I'll take your lead on this one. I think probably what I would say is that's not the proper process. Can you give me some more names?
Yeah, I personally would make sure that the scout understands that he's not supposed to read, he or she is not supposed to read them, that the unit is supposed to get there. Now the people writing the letters can add a note into the envelope if they want the letter shared with them. I could see that done afterwards. Right. I can also see the scout going and saying, hey, I would like to put you down for a letter of reference. Somebody will be contacting you on it, but realistically, it shouldn't be done. If it comes down that it has to be mailed to the scout's address for some reason, it should be mailed in an envelope that clearly states do not open except by Eagle board. So that way when it shows up, it shows up that they know what the letter is and it can be handed off the right way. It's the same way when you get letters of congratulation at the very end. Usually when you request letters of congratulations, like from senators and governors and all of that, you ask that to be sent to different addresses, but you ask for it to be put into another envelope so that it's not opened until it's supposed to be open. You know, it's kind of like a college transcript and even high school transcript that you're getting to send somewhere. It's usually in its own sealed envelope. So I would highly recommend that the scout follows that, and it needs to be explained to them that that's the way it should be, and not to read them.
Yeah.
You know? I do want to add one thing in that you had in there, Albert, about boards of review via Zoom. Two different things have to happen with those. The scout themselves need to request it, and then the council has to approve that it happens. And there's certain procedures into the guide of advancement that needs to be followed. But the first step is the scout actually needs to make that request. And a good example we have that one that just happened was we had a scout that he was the last one of his set of patrol to get to come up to this, and they wanted to do a huge celebration during Christmas break and have, I think it was 4 or 5 Eagles all in one court of honor to celebrate all these guys going through scouting together. And so that's where he's off at school right now. So he made the request, and then it was followed up so it can happen. And that's actually true with all boards of review. Eagle's not a unique one in there. If you have a life board of review that needs to happen that way for some reason, it can happen too, but it's still the same process. The scout has to ask for it, and then you need to get approval for it.
I've got another example of how that happened in our troop. We had a family that moved from California back to the East Coast, and their son stayed here, and because he wanted to finish up his Eagle. He's still going to school, high school. He graduated from high school and was accepted to an out-of-state school. And so he finished all of his requirements, and he was joining like an ROTC program. So he had to go like early summer. He left. And he said, how can I get my board done? My family is in North Carolina. They've moved. They're not coming back to California. And I'm now in Texas going to school. Can I do a Zoom board review? And while we would have preferred to have to do it in person, the fact was that he was never going to come back to California. So yeah, we just set it up and did it that way. Thanks, Ken. I made some notes for the next time.
Sure, no problem.
All right, we're a little bit over our time, but any other questions? Okay, well, thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I joined in late. I see that the meeting is being recorded. Would you be giving us the recorded presentation, the link to this? Would you be mailing us?
Ken, how does that work?
Sorry, my dog is protecting the house right now, so you hear barking in the background. I will be putting this link hopefully tomorrow onto the council website under the Eagle Scout section. So you can go click on it there. And when I get the slides from Albert, I will try to put the slides up there as well so that you can go both grab them there. So that's underneath the resources section on the website. So svmbc.org.
Thank you.
And hopefully I'll have it done tomorrow.
Hopefully I'll get to you tonight.
And I'm also hoping that the recording comes out okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone that participated. Appreciate all the new names and faces, and look forward to seeing you guys again at your names at proposal forums and at Eagle boards. Ken, back to you.
That is it. Thank you everybody for joining us. Oh, I did remember one thing. So Albert is the advancement chair for Quicksilver. I know we have people here from other districts. You'll want to contact your particular district advancement chair for when you're submitting your Eagle packets and things. Albert's not going to approve them all for the council.
I don't think I can.
So just make a note of it when you go to grab the packet. It actually lists out all of the other advancement chairs are there too, so you can contact them directly.
Yeah, and there's a list of them by district on the Eagle Scout resources page on the council website.
So there was one last minute question here about merit badges need to be done before 18th birthday. Does the Eagle project need to be done by 18th? Yes. All of the advancement and leadership positions and even the Scoutmasters Conference all have to happen and be signed off before they turn 18. That paperwork all has to be done. Granted, the board review can happen right after they turn 18, but everything leading up to it has to be done before they're 18. And yes, there's been a number that I've seen that 11:59 before their birthday, things are being signed off on a doorstep of a Scoutmaster thing. So I would say plan accordingly and try to get it in way before then.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Everybody have a good evening then, and
Thanks.
we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Albert.